So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to Group Somatic Yoga and Movement Exploration. I'm Per, and today's session is intended to work the upper back, middle back, and lower back to some degree. So, when we are using Hanna Somatics and Hanna Somatic yoga principles to work on the back, the posterior side of the body, we're working with something called the green light reflex patterns or protocols. So those are what we'll be focusing on a little bit today, postures that have an impact on these areas of the body, including the back of the neck for that matter. Because when you think about it, the back of the neck begins the back of the body. The back of the head actually begins the posterior side of the body, and that moves all the way down to the soles of the feet. So would you please, when you're ready, find your way down onto your belly? We'll start from there. So the process of attuning can happen whether you're supine, prone as we are today, side lying, standing. You can attune in a car, you can attune yourself when you're standing in the grocery aisle, waiting on the cashier. In fact, I encourage attuning to yourself and the space around you all the time. Now, you can't do it in every moment. There are going to be moments when you need to observe things that are crucial to you in the moment. But that's in relationship to yourself, as always, right? So it's kind of like a bit of a yo-yo, which might be a great way to think about this session today. So when you think about the action of a yo-yo, you spool the yo-yo, and then you flick your wrist to unspool the yo-yo, and it slowly respools itself until it comes back into the palm of your hand. And so there's this kind of back and forward dimensionality, or in and out dimensionality, or up and down dimensionality to the work that we're doing, whether that's with our human soma, with our thoughts, or with our relationships to one another. And that's an interesting model. So we'll play with that today a little bit. Let your attention come into the back of your head, please, and notice what you observe there. And then feel all of your soma. Let your attention come into the back of your neck. And then the fullness of your whole soma. Bring awareness to the space between your shoulder blades, your upper back, your shoulder girdle. And then all of your soma. Observe your middle back, where the ribs connect in, and at the base of the ribs where they terminate into your waistline. And then all of yourself, all of your soma, all of your body, all of your mind. Please observe your lower back, where the kidney band connects in below your ribs, your floating ribs in particular. So above the back of your pelvis and your sacrum. And then all of yourself. Feel the fleshy mounds of your buttocks. and how they connect into the backs of your calves and thighs. And then the fullness and breadth of your whole self. And lastly, feel the soles of your feet from your heel points to the middle of the arch, to where your toes connect in, and the tips of your toes. And then again, the whole of yourself. Take just one more minute to gently yo-yo your attention back and forward between perceiving all of your back and all of yourself. All of your posterior channel. And then the entirety of yourself. Now, would you prepare for our movement here? And we're going to start by thinking of the model that we've been working with, the moving back and forward and dividing the whole of yourself up for differentiation. It's not a real thing. You are never divisible. As long as you're a living entity, you're never divisible. But for purposes of working with yourself, for differentiating and coming back to integration, we use this model of moving back and forward. So would you please turn your head and neck to face whatever your easier side would be. So it might take you a moment to differentiate that out. You can turn your nose to the left and see how that feels. Is it easy? Then turn your nose to the right and see if that's easier. We want to choose the side that feels like it's naturally a little easier for you to turn towards to begin our work today, so that there's no struggle. And so that the side that's easier can teach the side that maybe is a little less easy. And when you found that for yourself, stay with the side that's easier, whether that's turning your nose to the right or turning your nose to the left. We're going to, just to be clear with the language, give the side that you turned your attention to, your nose to, the label of side 1, all right? The side you've turned away from will be side 2. So stay on your side, one side, and let your side 2 arm come all the way down to the side of your waistline. Now, you've got some options with the side 1 hand and arm configuration. You could certainly, if you prefer, leave your cheek, the side 2 cheek on your side 1 hand. If that supports your neck, I encourage it. Another option is to let your cheek rest on the ground as the base of support. So you've got at least 2 options, right? You could also add in a third option if you wanted to and use a pillow or use some kind of support for your head and your neck. So choose for yourself how you want to configure your limbs here based on comfort, right? It should be comfortable, should be easy. And now we're working on the upper trapezius, the upper back muscles, and your neck. And even to some degree, the muscles in the back of your skull, right? The muscles at the back of the head here. So to do this, what you want to do is feel the back of your neck, the side one shoulder, and in order to contract those muscles, in order to release them at the end, that yo-yoing action we call appendiculation, lift your side one elbow slightly away from the floor, contract the side one shoulder blade into the middle of your back. So it's like you're squeezing the shoulder blade in, and you might begin to notice that that side of your neck begins to contract, and it might even contract over to the opposite side of your neck, your side two side of the neck. Then slowly turn down the firing of those muscles. Let the shoulder blade ease away from the spine. Let your side one elbow return down to the floor and completely relax. Create that pattern 3 more times for yourself. So you might notice that within this yo-yoing of back and forward, in and out, up and down, there's lots and lots of levels and nuance and depth and breadth, right? It's not just up and down or back and forward or in and out. There's a lift up, a drawing in and across that contracts the upper trapezius and the muscles of the neck. And then there's a release outward and downward through space and time. Let's add in one more element. So you can either work just with the neck, or feel free to add this in with the shoulder and the arm movement. It's fairly simple. All you'll do is, as you're drawing your elbow up, your shoulder blade in, slide your nose away from the collarbone you're turned to. So if your one side happens to be your right side, for example, you're lifting your nose away, you're lifting your nose and your chin away from the right collarbone to contract a little bit more in the back of the neck. And then tuck your chin as you release the scapula, your shoulder blade, and the elbow comes down all at once. So we can add more depth, more breath in this yo-yoing action. Now, check in with what you're experiencing, and I want to offer you one more pointing out. If as you lift your nose and chin, you're lifting your head away from the floor, that's one way to do it. Here's another way. Leave your side two chin on the floor or on the back of your hand, as when we started, and just slide your neck into this movement from there and see if that changes the angle, changes the way the muscles respond in your shoulder, in your neck, in your arm, in your rib cage, and try that variation. It's not that what you might have been doing is wrong, because it's not. You might notice there is a slight difference between these two variations, though. So let yourself do maybe 1 or 2 more at your own pace, of course. And when you complete, please release over off your belly onto your back. We'll do a quick momentary assessment in the supine position, face up, just to observe any differences, any differentiation from your side one side to the side two side, which we have not yet done. So one way to observe this for yourself without necessarily buying into any artificial differences I might have suggested is to turn your head to one side, the side that feels like it might be freer, and then turn your head to the opposite side. And notice what you feel yourself. As I'm fond of saying, don't listen to what I say, go see. Find out for yourself. Does it make a difference? Did it work? With no rush, when you're ready, we'll do the next part of this movement. So find your way once again over onto your belly. We need to stick with the side, one side you started with, just to keep it even. We'll do the side too, I promise. I won't leave you half done, but I want to really differentiate here today, give your nervous system something deliciously nuanced, hopefully. That's my intention. We'll find out what happens. So we're going to move now from the upper back and the head and the neck somewhat to your middle back, the area that maybe is an area of inquiry for some of you today, right? Based on the initial self-assessment we started with. So in order to get into the middle back, the middle trapezius, the rhomboids, and even to some degree, the lats in the back, we need to change your hand position. So here's where it might be useful, depending on your neck, to let your left or your side two, try to keep the same languaging, side two arm come up and support your side two cheek, and bring your side one arm down and underneath you. So in this one, if you imagine you were a robot, right? Like the old Robbie the robot with the stiff joints, you can let your side one elbow flex and bring the palm of your side one hand against your side one hip, right? Even maybe slightly bring your fingertips underneath the side one hip so that your palm is face up into your side one hip and your elbow is free to move out to the side. Now from there, feel the ribs and the middle of your back on the side one side. And what we want to do here is let your elbow, the side one elbow, slowly lift like we did earlier in the upper position. But now we're in the middle of the back, right? So let the elbow lift slightly away from the floor. And then same idea, let your shoulder blade, your scapula, draw towards the midline on the side one side. This is the same side. So the hand that's underneath you, side one elbow lifts away, and that elbow squeezes slightly up towards the ceiling, and the shoulder blade squeezes into the middle of the back, contracting the mid-rhomboids. And then let those muscles, let the shoulder blade move away from the middle of the back. You'll notice your elbow lengthens away from you a little bit and also moves out and down a little bit, and continue that downward movement so that your elbow releases all the way down to the base of support. That might be all the way down to the floor, and maybe it's not. Maybe you need a little support, right? So if you need a pillow, you can use a pillow here, right? Underneath the outside of your side one elbow. Try that a couple of times. Feel how the rib cage on the side that you're contracting contracts not just the rib cage, but also contracts things perhaps on the opposite side of your torso. Right? In reality, as I've said before, we are indivisible ultimately. As long as you're a living entity, you can't separate, for example, your right rhomboid muscles from maybe your left buttock, which you might feel contracting here, or your left hamstring, which you might feel contracting here, or something on the opposing side. Last contraction and release. And when you release, rather than taking another pause this time, let's stick with and complete this side of your soma, right? So we'll realign, reposition the side, one arm and shoulder. So this time, let your side one palm slide out from underneath the side one hip and bring the arm, side one arm, back forward, like almost when you had it in the first position for the upper back movement, right? Except we want your palm to be free of your neck this time. So it's out to the side. If you imagine you've got your arm forward and the tip of your thumb, your side one thumb, is right in front of your nose, so you can see your palm out in front of you on the floor or on the ground. And here we'll be working all the way down your back, right, for the lower back component here. So similar to the earlier movement, keep your elbow, your side one elbow on the floor initially, and instead lift your side one shoulder away from the floor. So imagine you wanted to press your side one palm, that's right in front of your nose, into the ground. Let your shoulder and collarbone lift up and then drag it down your back, across your back, towards the side two rib cage or the side two hip and buttock. So again, to really be clear about the language here, using the early example, if your side one side is your right side, you're lifting your right shoulder, right collarbone away from the floor, and then moving your scapula, your side one scapula, towards your left rib cage or your left buttock. And then slowly release away from your left hip or left rib cage and left buttock, and then lower your shoulder back to the ground. Repeat this movement several times. Feel for that contralateral from the side one side towards the side two side contraction. And please allow yourself to move through this process maybe once or twice more if it feels good for you. We're going to try putting all of this together with a movement you already know from the Cat Stretch Plus series, Cat Stretch number 3. So for the final movement on this side, the side one side, let your side one palm again rest underneath and support your side two cheek. The side two arm comes back to your side. And we can start with your lower body first, right? So this is the one, Cat Stretch 3, where you lift the opposite leg. So your side two leg lifts away from the floor. Let your side two hip get heavy into the floor as your foot lifts up. Notice the contraction and the arch of the side two foot in the back of your side two hamstrings, in the back of the, excuse me, side two buttock. And then with your side one hand underneath the side two cheek, lift your elbow, lift your face, lift your shoulder away from the floor. So it all comes up. And now we're getting a really good contralateral cross diagonal contraction. Lower your leg, lower your shoulder, lower your arm, lower your face, lower your head. Take a deep pause, turn off the contractions to the best of your ability. And then recontract, lifting yourself away from the base of support. Lower as you seem fit. Try maybe 2 or 3 more sets at your own pace. For those of you joining me in the live session, I'll know when you're ready to continue, because at that point you can roll over onto your back, perhaps bending your knees and taking a rest from there. If you're joining me in the recording, when you complete your next cycle, please roll over onto your back with legs bent perhaps, and take a rest. Just maybe 4 or 5 breaths to suss out for yourself, how does your side one feel compared to your side two in your awareness? You could gently yo-yo your attention from one side to the other, and from one side to the other in relationship to the ground of support beneath you. So for example, how does the side one curve of your neck feel compared to the side two curve of your neck in relationship to the floor beneath the sides of your neck? Please bring the side one hand to the back of your head with your elbow out to the side. Let your side two hand come to the back of the side two knee or the front of the side two knee, whichever is easier for you to actually get to. This is cat 4. Again, a diagonal contraction in the back. So on your inhalation, perhaps, draw your side one elbow into the floor, arch your back, lengthen your tailbone into the floor. Exhale, and on your exhalation's completion, lift your tailbone, letting your lower back roll into the floor. Let your exhalation complete by moving your side one elbow towards the midline of your torso. Your side two leg and arm contract to lift up and contract now at the front of your body. So the elbow and the knee cross one another in the midline. And then open up again, arch the back, and contract again, crossing side one elbow and side two knee over the midline. Complete the one you're on at your own pace. And when you're ready, extend your arms and legs and roll over again onto your belly. When you're in the prone position, slowly turn to the side to side. Now we're going to start the sequence again on the opposite side. So again, you've got some options in this first version and in all versions. Remember, in the side two position, your nose turns to the side two, and the arm is either underneath your side one cheek, the side two arm is underneath your side two cheek, or it could be out in front of your side two cheek or outside of your nose, and the side one arm is down by your side. So make sure you're doing the sequence to the best of your ability as you did it on the other side. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want to move towards this sense of integration. And then from there, it's pretty much the same. Lifting your elbow, maybe a little bit away from the floor, contract your shoulder blade, the side two shoulder blade into the middle of the back. Decontract the shoulder blade, let it move away from the middle of the back. And that moves your elbow slowly down to the floor. Rinse and repeat. 2 or 3 more times. How smooth can you move the yo-yo through this sequence for yourself? When you notice spots in your movement trajectory that are not so smooth, those are really good spots. They tell you so much more than my words ever could. On your next completion, of the upper trapezius, upper back movement. Once again, take a breather here by rolling over and onto your back. There's no rush to get there. And then as, excuse me, as we did on the other side, this is an opportunity to check in, to self-assess through a little bit of movement. Has the range or the quality of your movement changed? So turn your head, rolling your head on your neck from one side through center to the other side. Does it feel a little more imbalanced than you remember about only doing one side earlier? Or is it still pretty stuck, right? Sometimes I do these and there's no change or very little change, and that's just the way it is some days, right? Can you be with yourself just as you are is still a part of the process, which makes somatics just like yoga, at least in my mind. So whatever you've gotten, whatever you've received from the experiment, take your time and come back over onto your belly. We'll continue our work into the mid-torso. So when you're ready, it's a little easier on the side to side because at least sometimes you remember some of the sequence. So in the second side, we're working the rhomboids in addition to other areas. So your side two arm now comes underneath you a little bit at the hand, right? And this is where the side one arm would support your side one cheek. Your elbow, your side two elbow would be bent a la Robbie the Robot. And it's out to the side. So the palm of your side two hand might be slightly underneath you, right? But the elbow is free to move. Think about slightly lifting your elbow, side to elbow a little bit, and then use the muscles of your rhomboid, right? Your middle back muscles to caliper and squeeze the shoulder blade into the middle of the back. Feel the contraction. That will lift your elbow even higher in most cases. And then let the scapula slide away from the back. You'll notice the elbow moves down a little bit and then continue that movement. Let the elbow slowly come all the way down to the best of your ability. Rinse and repeat this movement about 3 more times, 3 or 4 more times. If your movement feels a little bit like Robbie the Robot, that's where the analogy should kind of slowly be teased out. Let it feel organic. Let it feel like human movement because it's human movement, right? It may be a little bumpy, a little erratic, but as you sense what's happening, you get the opportunity to smooth out the bumps in your own metaphorical road to the best of your ability, at least, to whatever degree you can, at least. Feel the process of the muscles yo-yoing into the pendicular response, contracting. And then you're working against gravity here, right? Especially as you smoothly decontract the muscle fibers and lower your arm, your forearm back to the floor. The next time you complete, let's change the configuration for the last part here. So let your side two arm slowly come out from underneath your hip. Bring the palm of that hand up so that it's relatively close to parallel with your nose. The side two thumb should be visible right in front of your nose, maybe. Here we start by keeping the elbow on the floor, although it may not stay there. And instead, lift the shoulder, lift the collarbone up and away from the floor. Contract across your back as we did earlier, and then down towards the ribs or down towards the hip, down towards the opposite buttock. So if your side to side happens to be your left shoulder, you're moving across towards your right ribs or your right hip or your right buttock. And then slowly release the contraction. Rinse and repeat 3 or 4 times. On your next cycle, we'll reconfigure your side two arm so that that palm now comes underneath your cheek and the side one arm comes all the way down to your side. This is the cat number 3 in the somatic cat stretch series of 8 exercises we've done in the past. We start here with the leg though, just to offer a little bit of difference than what we normally do. So when you're ready, inhale to exhale. On your exhalation, let your side one leg at the foot lift away from the floor. As you lift the foot, the ankle comes up, the shin comes up, the knee comes up, a little bit of the thigh even comes up to anchor to anchor your hip into the floor. Notice the contraction that comes into your side to shoulder or even the arm or even the neck. Slowly add lifting your face, your arm, your shoulder away from the floor. So we're building on that. That's it. And then release. Side one leg, your head, your arm, your shoulder. And try that whole sequence 3 to 4 times. Again, there's no need to rush to completion. This is your practice. When you're complete, though, we'll move on, contracting on the other end of the spectrum, right? So in order to get there for cat 4, where we contract diagonally in the front line of the body, you'll want to Release and roll over onto your back and bend your legs from there. Bring the side two hand that you were working with earlier to the back of your head. The side one hand comes to the back or the front of your side one knee. Visualize the contraction that you're working towards here as moving your side two collarbone towards your side one hip point, right? So that's the diagonal of contraction. The elbow and the knee are just the farther out extremes. So when you're ready, inhale, arch your lower back, press the side two elbow gently into the floor if that works. Exhale to move towards the contraction in the front of the body. Elbow and knee may move towards one another or across from one another, and then slowly release. Rinse and repeat. Last one on this side. When you move to completion, let's try a side lying movement that also will have an impact on, in this case, the upper, the middle, and the lower parts of your spine. So choose a side, it doesn't matter which, we'll do both, and then roll over to the side lying position, right? Whichever side you've rolled over to, we'll call the side two side. So the side you're laying on is side two. The side that's closer to the ceiling is side one. Bend your legs at the knees. Bring your side one hand to your shoulder, right? So you really have to bend your elbow and let the fingers come to the front of the shoulder, front of the collarbone. Yep, there you go. Now, from here, let's start with parts of this cycle that you probably already know. Keep your knees together. They've been super glued. There's a balloon between the arches of your feet. You're going to inhale to exhale, exhale, roll your side one thigh internally, which will cause your side one shin and foot to lift away from the floor. That will draw your side one hip closer to your ribs and contract the lower part of your back. As your foot comes higher, you can also squeeze your elbow now down towards the middle of your hip. So keep your hand on your shoulder, but squeeze your elbow down, squeeze your shoulder down, and feel that central sideline contraction through your obliques here. Release your leg, lift your elbow towards the ceiling. Try that one more time. And then we'll offer a little bit of vectoring here. Here's our first vector, which is in the red zone, the anterior part of the obliques and the abdominals in particular, which is fairly easily achieved. Take your elbow, top elbow, and slide the elbow towards the front right, the front bottom hip when you're contracting. So everything else is exactly the same. You lift the top foot up, keeping the knees together, but your top elbow comes down in the front plane as if you're trying to move it towards the bottom hip. So the foot comes up, the elbow comes down, squeeze and contract. Notice how you're getting a contraction now, similar to that diagonal we did when you were on your belly to some degree, right? And then slowly release and try that vector twice more, just to get a sense of how this works for yourself. The next cycle, we're going to vector, but instead of moving towards the red light zone, we're going to move towards the green light zone. So that probably tells you exactly where the elbow is going to move. It moves towards the back. So same idea with the lower body. The foot comes up just as it did earlier, but move your elbow backwards now and towards the back of your bottom hip. So it's back and slightly down. And then as you lower your top foot and shin, let the elbow come back up to neutral. And try that vector a few times. Really nice for getting the back of the obliques a little bit differently than you may have in the first version. Complete the movement you're on. And when you do, reach your top side one leg straight down, and your arm on that same side rest over your cheek, over your head. So we're extending long here. The elbow straight to the best of your ability. You're letting the hand come to the floor if possible. Let your side one hand come to the floor right over your cheek. So the upper arm will rest on your cheek. The upper arm will rest on your cheek. So imagine Tadasana and extend your elbow. Imagine warrior one, let the arm get long over your head. There you go. And the palm rest, if you can, to the floor there. So you get really long. That's it. There you go. Take a breath into your rib cage here. Feel the yo-yo of your breath in the mid-torso, from your armpit on the side, one side, to your waistline, to your hip on your side, one side. Last movement before we move to the other side, which is one you probably already know and will probably feel really good now. Press out through the heel of your side one, top foot. Press the heel down and away from your hip. Keep that press so the leg stays long, the knee stays straight, and then inhale, exhale. As you exhale, reach your side one fingertips, the arm that's over your head, reach those fingers away from your away from your shoulder. So imagine the fingers staying on the floor if you can, but reach them away from the shoulder. So you're getting more length there. And then keep the leg engaged. Don't lose the leg. Relax your shoulder. Relax your elbow. Let the elbow soften. Side one elbow relaxes. The upper arm might come a little bit closer to your face, to your cheek. Inhale again. On your exhale, reach through the fingers. It's like you're crawling the fingers away from your shoulder on the exhalation. And then on the inhale, soften. And do that once or twice more. On your last cycle, when you reach through the side one fingers, let that reach roll you over onto your back. Slide your side one arm down to your side two arm down to your side, legs long if possible. Pause for a beat. Notice what you notice about yourself without any suggestions from me about what you might feel, about what you should feel, because none of that matters. What matters is what you do feel, what's real for you in this moment. Allow yourself to notice what you're resonating with here at the level of vibrations. Are there any images that are showing up? Are you feeling or noticing any memories inside? Are there any behavioral patterns that you noticed about the way you moved or the way you move in general? What's the emotional or affective palette that's showing up for you in your soma? And take the next few moments to transition over to the side lying position in the opposite arrangement. When you're on the side to side, remember to draw yourself to the seated position side line, right? In essence, it's like you're sitting in a one of those metal chairs, so the position of your feet relative to your knees comes into proper perspective for you. The alignment of your spine and your head is balanced with your pelvis. And then from there, we can do the lower leg movement, which you know already, which internally rolls your thigh and lifts your bottom leg, moving your leg internally towards a deduction. Add your upper torso into this by bringing your side two fingers to the side two shoulder and then letting your elbow move down towards your side to hip. Your head and neck may or may not be involved much. When you're ready, release the pandiculation, release the contraction by letting your elbow slowly move up and out to the side, your shins restack, your ankles restack, your feet restack to the best of your ability. Rinse and repeat. One day I'm gonna have to come up with another quicker way of saying that. That's not quite so boring, at least to me. It's shorthand for coming back to the 0 point. And you see now why I use it. Rinse and repeat's a lot easier to say than come back to the 0 point. I'll shut up and give you a moment or two to play with this. Great, on your next cycle with no rush from me when you're ready, let's try moving in the vectors. The front vector means that your top elbow moves down, but forward towards the front bottom hip. Again, this moves towards the front of the obliques and the abdominals. And then let your elbow move back up and towards its natural 0 point. Let your leg move down. So you decontract what you contracted, rinse and repeat. When you feel ready, try 3 to 4 rounds, moving the elbow backwards and down towards the bottom hip into the posterior muscular chain or the green light muscle zone. Taking all the time in the world you need for completion. And when you get there, extend your side 2 legs straight down and the arm over your head. So the bicep or the upper arm may rest along your cheek to the best of your ability, palm of the hand resting on the floor over your head. Take a couple of breaths to expand from the inside of your own somatic yo-yo towards the outside. Now, again, let's work from the bottom up, processing through movement, beginning with the side 2 leg and heel of the foot. Press down to extend your hip. You might even get a little hip hike movement here as your right or left heel, depending on the side you're resting on, slides down and away. Your bottom hip, whatever that is for you, slightly comes up. And then reach through your top arm over your head, trying to keep the palm or at least the fingertips close to the floor. And then relax the arm, keep the leg active. So continue to press out through the heel of your side 2 foot, and we'll just work with the arm and the shoulder, because this will have a more profound impact on the side 2 rib cage, on the obliques in particular, in the middle of your back. So reach through the arm and then relax through the arm. On the other side, we configure the breath on the exhalation. You can do that. You can also do it on the inhale. So it really does depend on what feels good for you. Sometimes it's nice to vary and figure out what works best for you. On your next cycle, with no rush, as always, when you extend your side 2 arm towards its length, let that be the impetus to roll slowly over onto your back, sliding the side 2 arm down to the side. Reconfigure yourself, shift, wiggle your position in any way you need to. Rest briefly here for a moment, checking in with vibrations, images or mental pictures that pop into your head, memories. Did you behave the same way on this side as you did the other, in terms of movement or some other behavioral pattern you picked up on? Does the emotional landscape feel the same? And what sensory input are you picking up on now? Take about 3 more breaths to give yourself a little bit of time. If you need more time, you can take it, to come back to your sense of the interior and the exterior being one vibration.